Good evening and welcome to the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. Today is August 7th. My mom's birthday is today. It's 5:30 p.m. If we could get a call to order, please, Amber.
Mrs. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Neff?
Here.
Mr. Martin is absent. Two present. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Before we do the approval of minutes, I'm going to toss it over to Mr. Hennessy to do a new staff introduction.
I will. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So we have a new face in the crowd. I wanted to introduce to not only the council members, but others in the community who are actively following the work of the city. So Carla Odebrowski there is, we talked a little bit about her. She is the person filling the role of the Director of Planning and Engineering. So she is an engineer by education, comes to us via Upper Arlington, will be serving as the city's engineer moving forward. Although not immediately, we're transitioning through with CT, just trying to get her up to speed on issues. The other thing I think that would be important to note is as a result of the title, Director of Planning and Engineering, we will have our planning staff reporting up through Carla. So that's Alyssa and Alex. So you'll see her at planning related meetings as well. So
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the July 3rd meeting, I will make a motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Neff?
Yes.
2 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have visitors on our agenda. Are there any visitors that would like to speak to the committee today? Then we'll move on to our unfinished business. First up, we have J.R. Smith Park. I had reached out to Mr. Hennessy and asked for an update on J.R. We have seen Galena recently do their ribbon cutting for Miller Park, and we have been promoting our reservoir park. And so it has gotten folks asking what's going on with JR. So we have an update.
Dan's going to do the update.
Thank you, Mr. Wyden.
Thank you, and happy birthday to your mom.
Yeah.
And welcome to Carla. And I don't think it'll take her, she's a very smart person. I don't think it'll take her too long to get up to speed. So J.R. Smith. One unexpected challenge is we're having difficulty with I can't think of the correct word, as quality or disposition of the boundary survey. We're gonna have to do some more work. It's not closing, surveying work, and also potentially some encroachments. We want to make sure we onto the city, not the city onto others, that we need to document just for our own purposes as we move forward. But that's slowed us up a little bit, but it also, what we're really focused on is taking the available budget, evaluating how we can best accomplish the phasing. And with a project like this, the phasing is best done so that you do sort of a mass grading on the entire facility site to accommodate the future building pad, the pavilion, the trails, and make sure that's all set. So when you come in with the next phase after the first phase is completed, you don't have to go back and mess up some of the work that was done with the initial. So we're Rich, just off the phone with Rich, actually on the way out here. Rich Washington is the landscape architect and primary designer for the project, and he's working on doing that. It is a difficult site to do with it because it's pretty large, and we've got that long drive going back to where the Lions building is. So we're trying to maximize what we can get done with that first phase, but we don't have anything to report on it yet. I will bring that to the next meeting. But once we get that done, we can fully launch. Once we get that survey completed and we get the phasing figured out that suits what the city, that's acceptable to the city, then we'll go ahead into final design for that portion.
Do we budget in our phase 1 budget for all of the site work to be done?
Well, we haven't, wow.
That what we're
Yeah, I think that's what Dan's alluding to. We got to figure out how much of the project we can do in phase 1. So we have $1 million toward the project at this point. he's recommending, and it certainly makes sense that we take care of the kind of the basic elements of, again, mass grading, parking, those other types of issues. It may not be the attractive amenities, but we're going to find out really how much it's going to cost to do that. And then the other thing I was going to add is that, we are entering into the next budget cycle. And so one of the things we'll talk about, I'm sure, is whether the city wants to put in some additional funding in next year's budget cycle for J.R. Smith Park. I mean, I'm not saying we wouldn't continue to pursue grants and other opportunities, but we've got $1 million toward it. Half of that is coming from the city. The other half of that comes from the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So there'll be a budget decision to be made as well. But the engineers are working on, again, fundamentally, what's the baseline work going to cost us?
And just to be clear, the splash pad would most likely not be phase one. It makes sense to put that pavilion in, which would house a pipe galley, so you can get that infrastructure in advance of the splash pad itself going in. There's a real, as you can imagine, with all the little bubblers and fountains and stuff, there's a lot of piping that comes in and out of that building with the to accommodate the splash pad amenities. So it would be.
Is that that's not considered site work?
It is, that would be, I'm not sure we would put in any of the pipes, but we would have the galley, the infrastructure in place to set the pumps and the pipes and all to be able to get to the splash pad. Because if we did the splash pad first, we'd be putting that stuff in the ground and may not do it appropriately or may not accommodate the future pavilion site, or it would be difficult and not cost effective to do it that way.
How long, for how many years have we had that $500,000 sitting aside for JR?
So we just put that in the budget this year.
This year?
Yeah. So this is the first year we've set money aside for it.
Okay. Okay.
Now we'll have to reappropriate that as part of the budget
Sure.
process. The question is whether we put additional funding in beyond that. So, and when Dan speaks to kind of not including the splash pad in phase one, that's if we stay at $1 million. Again, if there's a larger contribution from the city, I mean, we may be able to accommodate.
Do we have, I mean, prices of everything are increasing constantly. So have we gone back and done an updated budget on how much we think what we've already said we want will cost? Or are we still going off the numbers from?
Yeah, we're still using the original estimate at this point. So
We are, but we're also doing some pre-engineering level of engineering evaluation to make sure, for example, the pavilion itself, we had originally anticipated, right now we're anticipating using a prefab building, but our experience with other splash pad, other pavilions like that, we've done one in West Virginia and I can't remember the other city, but we've done them and we've used the prefab buildings. We've found them to end up being more costly than if we do our own custom design in-house and accommodate it that way. For whatever reason, feel like it'd be more effective to do an in-house design.
Okay, because if we're gonna ask council for money, then we should have a good estimate of
agree. Yeah,
how
yeah,
much we're gonna be asking for, and that
right.
we're not gonna come back and ask for
Sure.
more money.
I will definitely update the costs as we're doing that evaluation, yes.
Okay.
And minimize the need for contingency.
Any questions, Mr. Neff? Okay, thank you for that. Folks have been asking, so I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, next on our unfinished business is reservoir ribbon cutting. I saw in your administrator report, Mr. Hennessy, that our services team has been busy up there.
They have, you may recall at one of our recent council meetings, there were some concerns about the condition of the property as well. So not only are we trying to feature it as a result of the ribbon cutting, but it was probably time for us to get in there and do a little bit of housekeeping on that as well. So yes, I did have it in the report. They will clean the paths. They're cutting back the vegetation at this point. The contractor has been in to take care of most of the, if not all of the punch list items. We're missing a couple of pieces of furniture, but we knew that. We've got those ordered. They just haven't come in yet out there. Yeah, so I think they're
Mr.
going to be
Bennett
ready.
had mentioned last time he was there, there was quite a bit of trash. I'm assuming that's been. picked
Yeah,
up.
we'll clean that up. They're going to restripe the parking lot again. Only a portion of it is paved, so that other portion gets kind of worn off as people come and go, which is fine. We will have, again, Mr. Ghost is going to join us for this meeting or for this event. And I think we've got a few fishing rods and maybe a kid or two to, Yeah.
We'll actually have a few adult size and kid size fishing poles. If anybody wants to fish that doesn't have one, they can test out that new floating dock. A couple of the Boy Scouts, are gonna come, and as well as the Preston family, we've invited them out as well. So it should be a really good time.
Okay, I plan to be there. I know you're trying to be there if you can, and the chamber will be there.
thank you,
So-
Chamber.
Great.
That actually, as far as like the housekeeping goes on that, I was up there last week.
Mhm.
And I could see significant improvement, which was really nice. Is there some sort of housekeeping schedule for the parks that is available that we can set up? If there's not, because that'll grow pretty fast. I mean, I've been up there years past and I've seen like the whole, I don't even know, the vegetation that takes over the whole entire area.
Yeah.
Something that we can start doing to prevent that or put it on a routine or.
Yeah, I think under Jake's leadership, we've been trying to stay a little bit more ahead of that. In fact, I shouldn't say that. It actually did begin last year when Adam was in the supervisor position role. They did try to clean up the reservoir park a little bit more, but I think this year's group has taken it a step farther than that. They are trying to clear vegetation from the fence row as well, in addition to kind of what's in and around the reservoirs themselves. So we are actively looking to fill the 2 vacancies in the service department. I think we do have an offer out to one individual at this point, so we're
So
almost
you are
fully
still
staffed.
hiring for services department?
Yes.
So we can
Yeah.
keep that.
And one other thing, I mean, if you may recall, last year, we did add part-time employees during the winter to help with the snow. We're going to kind of continue on that pattern, which will keep our full-time staff more focused on, again, the basic infrastructure of the city. So we'll certainly pass that message along to Jake that
Yeah,
It'd be-
stay
it'd be
with
good
the
to build
staff
out
where
a-
We want to maintain, it's so nice out there. We want to maintain that, or else
Yeah.
what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Great, no,
August.
August, so it's Saturday, August 10th at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Mhm.
Moving on to new business. First, we have the Sunbury Sizzle and Sounds, and the event permit is in your packet. This has already gone through the events committee. Some things to note are they're going to be opening up a portion of the grass square on this side of the square into the beer garden this year. So that will be different. I forget what did she say she was calling it? The lawn lawn seating, something like
That's
that.
where they're gonna encourage the chairs, because chairs won't be allowed inside the beer garden, but they'll be allowed in the grass area. So they just want people to sit and relax there.
And that will be included in.
Yeah, it's-
It'll be, you can have.
It will be, yeah. Yeah, so the fence line of the beer garden gets extended into the lawn area over here.
But the
But
other
yes, that's
rules,
all
like,
beer garden.
there's still not gonna be, animals aren't allowed in there. Infants that are being worn, they're still not allowed in there. Everyone will need an ID, even, if you have a white beard, or if we've had this where ladies are 9 months pregnant and they didn't bring their ID, so everyone needs to bring an ID. That part hasn't changed. They have a lineup of bands with Mrs. Ernst mentioned that the very first band is, what'd she say, sophomores in our
Yeah,
they're sophomores at Big Walnut their band is starting off the show, so that's pretty exciting. Other than that, I don't know that there was much different than, this is an event that we host every single year, so. There are some other changes. They are going to have a third gate And they have moved, they're still gonna have one gate right out here from the sidewalk of the square, but they have moved the gate that used to be across from Firehouse. They have moved that down. They're hoping that, will prevent some problems. I know folks before were just trying to walk from one side to the other and bring drinks in and not have to show ID. And so I do think Teresa and Cindy, because it seems every year we're like, let's try this a little bit different, and they get on board. So I am grateful for them for that.
So maybe a couple of other points that Amber and I were talking about, just want to be aware of security and
They have hired additional security this year. On top of having the police there, they have their own with the expansion of the beer garden. The roads will start to close at 5 p.m. on Friday. With that will include Granville and Columbus. Vernon Street will close Saturday morning when they bring in the beer truck. So everything around the square except for Cherry Street will be closed Saturday morning. So the traffic will be,
What time does it open for the kids?
it's 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. They do have a midnight rain, if needed, rain delay. It will end at midnight if they need to have any type of delay.
I wasn't sure
Just on
about
that point, though,
security, so, because she hadn't mentioned that at the class, so I'm glad to hear
Yeah.
that, because I was wondering about that.
yeah, I was just going to add the extension of time though is it's conditioned upon the mayor weighing in and others. So it's not automatically extended to midnight. We'll communicate that if there is a rain delay at some point
Right,
during the day.
typically the fire department is
Yes.
in on that, police are in on that.
Yep.
I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. I'm volunteering, so. And it does look that like she's got her volunteer set, and that has not always been the case at this time. We are usually scrambling, calling friends and neighbors, and so it looks like it's fully staffed, so that's great. Okay, Fishing for a Cure. I want to say this has gone through the events as well. So Sunbury Christian would like to host a fishing derby at the reservoir in September, and they're going to be working with, is it the Preston family? What's the family? Do you remember their
Yeah,
name?
it's Preston.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
Preston family, which is the family that came last October, and Mayor St. John gave the proclamation of pediatric cancer awareness. Are they charging for this, or it's
Yeah.
just to raise awareness?
It's a free event. It is to raise awareness. They will be taking donations. All donations will be donated to St. Jude's Hospital. They're providing hot dogs, chips and water for the kids. I want to say they're going to do some raffles too, and some prizes for the biggest fish, the smallest fish. They're mirroring it off of the one they usually hold earlier in the summer. They're gonna change it up going on forward and have this one. So this is the first annual one that they're gonna do. But as of everything else, it's the same as what they've done in years prior.
And we are trying to get a shipment of
Yes,
fish.
it's on order. I
This.
have asked very nicely. They're doing their best to get it here before that date. But it's just a weird time for fish.
Yeah.
So
I'm learning that through you. Apparently it's warm out there for the fish.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on that, Mr. Nutt? Labor Day Flea Market, did we see this one in the events? Because it's not looking, I mean, it looks familiar because they come every year, but I don't recall
I
it
don't
being
think
at
it made
events. Okay,
It did not.
this is by Kiwanis. And they have done this every year for the last few years. This one, remind me. I'm sure it was electric related. That Mr. Bennett was talking about with the Memorial Day. Was that the bounce houses or it was food trucks that weren't aware that we had electric on the square?
I think it was a mix of both, but I think it was the food trucks, right?
It was.
Okay, so can we communicate to Mr. Litton specifically what we have so that, and ask him kindly to communicate with his vendors? And if they need anything prior to let us know, so we don't have these loud generators if at all possible. Okay. Was there anything from staff about the Labor Day?
Nope, this has gone through, all the emergency services. There was no red flags. It went through our services department. Jake checked it over. He was good to go. It's pretty much the same as last year. I don't think they're gonna have as many food trucks. They'll be serving their own food as well on the
Saw that.
square. So, I think that's what they're leaning towards, so. Should have that permit to do that prior to that as well.
Okay. Any questions about that, Mr. Neff? Okay. We've gone from unfinished to new, now we're on to other parks business. First up is lawn games on the square. This was brought up at our last parks meeting. And Ms. Graziosi, do you have Graziano? Sorry, sound like Graziosi from a school board. Graziano, do you have an update on that?
Yes, so we've been talking about it, the staff, and trying to figure out the best way to go about this, because there isn't trying to make sure like the pieces don't get misplaced or taken. So the first one so I put a lot of images in here just to kind of get ideas. For the cornhole, having like the concrete, cornhole boards to that way make it easier. And then they also have like little sections for them, so it's like easily identifiable, like this is where the cornhole is, rather than on the picture on page 32 on the top right, it's just grass, but then the one next to it has like all the bricks. So I didn't know if that was something that we wanted to do to kind of make it look nicer. But I was kind of thinking if it is going to be a permanent feature, maybe that's something we feature in one of our other parks and not necessarily on town square. And we would just have to supply the bean bags and hope that they're just still there. Same with the permanent checkers and chessboard. That would probably, since it is so large, would do best at a different park, maybe Freedom or J.R. Smith. Again, with the pieces, just unless we have some sort of surveillance, but I don't really know how well we would be able to keep track of them, especially if we want to leave this open like in the evenings and over the weekend and stuff. Mainly just, hoping they're not taken. The temporary lawn games, these are more inexpensive. I think like these would be the best on the square just because we could store them in town hall. Since the building is open during the day, they can come in, grab it, take it outside. And I put a couple different options in here. They're not, so if they were to get taken, it's not like we're out a ton of money.
Did you find any municipalities around us that do anything similar to this?
I have reached out to one, but I have not heard back. I can keep reaching out again to see. It's kind of hard to find them unless you've been to the actual park, because I was looking at different municipalities trying to see like which parks had them, and they're not really all advertised. So I can do some more digging.
Did you know of a specific park?
Yeah, several throughout the Central Ohio region. I can't name them right off the top of my head. But I think the concept of this was, many people have brought this up, saying like when they're up here in the square, they think it would be fun if they were waiting for a table for 45 minutes to go out and play cornhole real quick, or do the life-size checkers or chess or whatever it is. So I can see, yeah, they'd be good at other parks too, but I think it really kind of goes with the whole enhancing the square, making the square a place for people to come to spend time and to be a community. Because a lot of people have mentioned like it would be nice to see these cornhole boards or any one of these yard games out there. And as far as, the bags or whatever, I mean, those are the minuscule things that we could work on down the road. I think the concept is enhancing the square and making it a place for people to congregate. And that's really at least the intention that I've grasped from this.
And I think this is similar, this isn't a weird analogy, but it's similar to our road diet on Sunbury Meadows, where we're starting small
Mhm.
with something that doesn't cost a lot of money with paint first. So I don't think I think this one with the brick is beautiful, sure, right? I mean, I would like that in my backyard. That's beautiful, but I think we start with something significantly cheaper and test it out and see how our residents like it and see if, can we have nice things? Let's see. And I don't, so are you saying during the day, during the week, Alyssa, our town hall is open?
Right now it is because the police are stationed here, the administration, but when they move.
When they move,
There's
it
not gonna be
won't
anybody
be.
in the building.
Okay. So we can't use that we can probably use that as like a storage for when we choose to ask our services department or whoever to bring them in, but so that brings up some questions, obviously, right? Like, with our weather and I think there's some things to think about here, but I don't think we should say no. I think we should say, let's keep thinking about it. Let's see how we can do this in an inexpensive way that doesn't cause a lot of stress on our staff, but can bring some added value to the square. What were your thoughts, Mr. Hennessy?
No, I was going to probe more deeply on the temporary, but you answered the question. So basically, what I thought I heard you say is let's test it with some temporary games and just begin to figure out.
And I
what
think
the
that can be
options look like.
temporary.
Right.
We don't have to have the concrete ones. I mean, all of ours are
Right.
temporary that we take to picnics and
Yep.
everything, so. Let's
All
keep
right, well,
thinking about that.
yeah, we'll price a few options, and, maybe we'll float them by you, and maybe we can get this out before the end of, out before the end of the summer, I guess what I'm saying, or even before our next meeting. Might be able to get a couple of games out of the square. So we'll circle back with you,
Okay,
Madam Chair, and if you're not comfortable with the approach, then we'll bring it back to the next committee meeting. Otherwise, we'll get a chance to monitor it. Maybe we could take the
Right.
Parks
and
Committee.
then this would, obviously it would, Ms. Swain would cleverly put some posts out there and say,
Right.
this is what we're trying to do. We've had a lot of feedback from our residents and we want to take care of these and, all that stuff that you always do, so. Okay. Old Orchard Park and the Storybook Trail. I noticed there's a Storybook Trail near the Alum Creek Beach too. I was driving on, I think it's Lewis Center Road, and I saw Storybook Trail and I was like, oh, let's get one of these. So what's the latest?
So the one at Alum Creek, I believe, is ODNR. So that's a longer trail. It's sponsored through that. The ones that I reached out to the Westerville Public Library. They have partnered with the city of Westerville, Genoa Township, and Blendon Township. So I wanted to see what they used for their signs, like where did they order them, how much was it, the maintenance, and just like kind of what they learned from it, and like so to help us. So they have 3 that are all on about 1/3 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile trail. They're all loop trails. Sorry, started out of order. So they ordered from Barking Dog Exhibits, and Preservation Parks has also ordered from there. So currently looking to get an estimate from them. They on packet page 36, I included some of the images of the options that they have on their website. Just see like kind of what do we want, like what type of panel, what kind of post. But reaching out, so I also reached out to Preservation Parks, and they both have said that they'll like purchase 2 or 3 copies of a book, disassemble it, just put them right in, the frames slide out easily. and they can decorate it. I have reached out to our local library to see if they'd be interested in partnering with us that way. Cause the initial idea was just do one story. But what I found is that they change them out every 3 to 4 months to keep people coming
Oh.
back, and that's more
That
active.
makes sense.
So I was kind of thinking like maybe reaching out to the library to see if they'd be interested in partnering with us to kind of keep that going and see. So
Have you done that or that's what you want to do?
I have done that. They are interested, so it's just more so trying to figure out like the final agreement and stuff, trying to figure out what all they would like to do, like are able to do with their staff.
Good idea. Thank you.
Are you thinking changing out the stories but keeping the theme still, or the same overall like first responders theme, I think is what it was? Or
Yeah,
would it be just changing the theme?
probably changing the theme as well. I do want to focus because it is the Fallen Heroes Memorial Trail, so probably starting out with one of those books. That maybe for Halloween, we could do like a Halloween children's book, maybe a Christmas one, depending on the season. And if how often we change them in and out, so.
Is that okay with you? I understand what you're saying. I agree, because we were first thinking it would be one book and it would be a first responder book, but it does make sense.
Right,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because we were talking about doing maybe even some carvings in the trees, so I'm wondering,
Mhm.
obviously those, you can't change the theme, so it stays. So the underlying theme would always, if we were to do tree carvings
Mhm.
that relate to the first responder or military, then kind of, there's the theme forever.
Sure.
But I think it would still be good to go through and have the stories change, and it would still do the trail justice by having the overall theme constantly as the first responders, fallen heroes.
And inside Old Orchard Park where they have the nature trail, we could always get like smaller panels that are more permanent that aren't interchangeable. So if there are like tree carvings and stuff, we could have like a little panel in front of it with like a description about it and stuff. Since those trees that would be carved are within those pathways. It was more so because the Fallen Heroes Memorial Trail is already paved and ADA accessible. It was kind of the idea to have it on that, but as well as tie into the theme and of our first responders.
Great work, Alyssa. I like that.
All right, so as Alyssa said, she's trying to get some pricing information regarding the stands themselves. So once we've got that, we can circle back again, whether that's something that can be funded this year or whether we need to put that in next year's budget. So we'll have that's how we'll follow up, at least with respect to kind of next steps. Okay.
Do we have estimates on how much tree carvings cost?
I don't know that we've done that yet, have we?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly is our monthly park update. Alyssa, I'm assuming that's you, I guess.
Nothing for Evening Street or Freedom Park, General Rosecrans. All of the work in the detention basins are completed. I know we talked about that the last update, but it has all been fully closed out now, so they are all good to go. J.R. Smith, we already touched on that earlier. Nothing for Old Church Park, Old Orchard Park. Mainly just working out the finer details, getting quotes for the panels and the posts. Reaching back out to the Sunbury Community Library and seeing more about a partnership. The reservoirs, the floating docks open and installed. Ribbon cutting ceremony is this Saturday at 10 a.m. Nothing for Sunbury Memorial Park, and for town squares. Movies on the Square was canceled last Saturday because of the weather, but it is rescheduled for this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah, ask you a question about Freedom Park. Do we have a porta potty at Freedom Park?
Yes.
There is one. Okay, because there are some sports that are using Freedom Park, and the they're asking athletes to use the restroom before they come out there. So I was
There's
like,
just one, are you?
Okay.
Is there like a feel that maybe it's getting more use and maybe we need during the sports season, we may need to put one more?
I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. So the Big Walnut cheerleaders, youth cheerleaders are practicing out there and they are telling their cheerleaders to use the restroom before they come. I don't know if the football players still play out there or have they moved? Do you know?
I don't know. I've requested all of the sports around here to let me know of their schedules because there's been a lot of requests for the usage of fields.
Yeah.
So I can get back with you on that.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out, but I will let you guys know Freedom Park, tomorrow, Friday and Monday, they will be spreading milling along the entirety of the driveway in the parking lot back at the disc golf. So it's gonna be a little restricted. We've let a lot of the disc golf players clubs know, but if you guys want to spread that word too,
Okay.
it might get a little, you can still get back there, but maybe not go back there, but they
Okay.
should be done by Monday, right? And if they're not working, that's great, but while they're working, maybe just,
What days are those in?
so the 8th, the 9th and the 12th. Mhm.
I can try to find out too where those football games are
And if
gonna be
it's
played. I
more
know
of the
historically they
conditioning-
played out there, but then I think now they kind of use the intermediate schools since they have a field out there and they have bleachers and it's,
I think that's flag usually was out there, at least last season,
flag was where?
at Freedom, at least was where we would practice.
Do you have a flag player this year?
Yeah.
No, I don't either.
But
That's fine. I'm just glad to hear there's one out there because and you have kindergarten cheerleaders, they need to have access to a bathroom. So
Yeah.
okay, great. Anything else to add, Mr. Neff?
no,
Good meeting. Anything else from the staff? Okay, motion to adjourn, please.
second,
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Neff?
yes.